The aroma of barbecue smoke blended with the gentle late afternoon breeze as I observed 3 police cruisers arriving at my property. Through the curling wisps rising from our grills, I watched the officers emerge from their vehicles, their faces stern as they walked toward our group gathered by the pond. My neighbors paused in the middle of their conversations, burgers abandoned on their plates, and the children's laughter faded into anxious murmurs. Yet I merely smiled and picked up the folder I had kept on the picnic table for the past 3 weeks, anticipating precisely this moment. 9 minutes. That was all it took to utterly dismantle Karen Thornberry's reign of terror over our neighborhood. 9 minutes to see her smug expression dissolve into disbelief, then panic, and finally into what I can only call absolute defeat. But I'm jumping ahead. Allow me to explain how Oak Ridge Estates' most infamous HOA president discovered that sometimes the land you believe you control has a habit of reminding you who truly owns it. My name is David Parsons, and 15 years ago, I inherited 40 acres of prime land from my grandfather. The property features a stunning 3-acre pond that has belonged to our family for generations. When Grandpa passed away, he left me not only the land, but also boxes of documents going back to 1892, when his great-grandfather originally bought it. I constructed my home on the eastern section, preserving the pond and its surrounding areas as a natural sanctuary that I have always generously shared with neighbors who cherish its tranquility. 10 years ago, Oak Ridge Estates expanded, and through what I now understand was either negligence or intentional misrepresentation, the HOA asserted that my pond area was under their authority. At the time, I was occupied with my consulting business and paid little heed to their newsletters or meetings. I never signed their covenant agreements, never paid any dues, and quite frankly, forgot they even existed until Karen Thornberry was elected president 6 months ago. Karen had moved to Oak Ridge Estates 3 years earlier from somewhere up north, attracted by what she described as the opportunity to establish proper community standards. At 5'2", with constantly pursed lips and a clipboard that appeared permanently attached to her arm, she turned our serene neighborhood into something resembling a low-security prison. She issued citations for grass height violations, mailbox color infractions, and my personal favorite, a rule requiring all outdoor gatherings to obtain HOA approval with 48 hours advance notice. The first time Karen trespassed onto my property, I was teaching my nephew how to fish. She positioned herself at the pond's edge, her designer heels sinking into the damp soil, brandishing a laminated copy of the HOA bylaws. With a triumphant air, she declared that all water features had to be registered with the HOA, and that fishing required a permit personally signed by her committee. I courteously informed her that this was private property. She sneered and replied, "Everything within Oak Ridge Estates falls under HOA governance." That evening, I retrieved Grandpa's boxes. What I discovered made me chuckle aloud. Not only did I own the pond and the surrounding 20 acres free and clear, but the original survey revealed that Oak Ridge Estates' HOA had been using approximately 2 acres of my land for their community walking path without permission or compensation for the past decade. I consulted my lawyer friend, James Morrison, who verified my suspicions. The HOA had no legal claim to my property at all. I could have confronted them right away, but James advised patience. With a mischievous tone, he said, "Let them dig their own grave. Document everything." So I did. Every instance of Karen's trespassing, every menacing letter citing violations, every occasion she stood at my property line recording my supposed infractions on her phone, recorded it all. 3 weeks ago, she issued a formal notice threatening legal action if I failed to comply with HOA regulations. That was when I decided to host a barbecue. I sent out invitations for the Memorial Day Pond Barbecue to all my true neighbors, not via HOA channels, but through personal notes to the 30 families I had known for years. I specified that this was a private event on private property. 25 families responded yes. Eager for a relaxed afternoon, I arranged for a local barbecue truck, set up tables and chairs, and even installed a modest sound system for background music. Everything was entirely legal and compliant with county noise ordinances. The party began at 2:00 p.m. on a gorgeous Saturday. Children were splashing in the pond's shallow areas. Adults were savoring cold beverages and delicious food. And for the first time in months, our neighborhood truly felt like a community once more. That was when Hurricane Karen struck. She charged through the assembled guests, her face flushed with fury, clipboard gripped like a weapon. She yelled over the music that this event was unapproved and breached at least 17 HOA rules. I calmly offered her a burger. This appeared to short-circuit her thinking. She stammered briefly before unleashing a rant about permits, quiet hours which did not begin until 10 p.m. and something regarding commercial food vendors. When I kept smiling and invited her to join us as my guest, she drew out her phone with a malicious grin. She declared loudly enough for the entire gathering to hear that she was summoning the police for an illegal assembly, noise violations, and unpermitted commercial activity. While we awaited their arrival, Karen positioned herself at what she assumed was the HOA property boundary, arms folded tightly, periodically yelling legal threats at anyone who dared meet her gaze. The party carried on, though a palpable tension lingered in the air. Some neighbors began gathering their belongings, anxious about potential police intervention. I reassured everyone to stay calm, and discreetly fetched my folder from the house. James had assembled everything with precision: original deeds, surveys, tax records, and a meticulously crafted cease and desist letter. The first officer to approach was Sergeant Wallace, a tall man with gentle eyes, whom I had met previously at local community events. He came straight to me first, likely because I was casually tending to the burgers while Karen seethed with fury just behind him. Professionally, he inquired whether I was the property owner and what the problem appeared to be. I explained that we were simply hosting a private gathering on my own land, and that the HOA president wrongly believed she held authority over it. I passed him the folder. As Sergeant Wallace reviewed the documents, the two other officers were listening to Karen's complaint. Her indignant voice echoed across the yard, hurling accusations of criminal trespass and public nuisance. The sergeant's demeanor shifted noticeably as he examined the papers. He summoned Officer Bennett over, and they spent several minutes cross-referencing the survey maps with information on their patrol car's computer. The change was striking. Sergeant Wallace returned to where Karen was still vehemently complaining to the other officers, and spoke quietly with them. Then he addressed Karen directly. I could not catch the initial conversation, but I witnessed the precise instant her arrogance vanished. Her mouth dropped open. She shook her head furiously, and her voice escalated to a shrill pitch that likely unsettled dogs in neighboring areas. She shrieked that this could not possibly be true, insisting the HOA possessed jurisdiction here. Sergeant Wallace came back to me, accompanied by the other officers. He verified that, based on all official records, not only did the pond and its surrounding area belong entirely to me as private property, but the HOA had been trespassing on my land for years. With a hint of amusement in his voice, he asked if I wished to press charges for trespassing or harassment. I replied that I did not at this moment, but I handed him the cease and desist letter for him to witness its delivery. Karen attempted to charge over, but Officer Bennett courteously intercepted her. What followed was truly satisfying. Sergeant Wallace formally served Karen with the cease and desist letter, reading aloud the key sections as permitted. The letter required the HOA to immediately cease asserting authority over my property, remove any HOA signs or markers from my land within 7 days, and end all forms of harassment. It further pointed out that the community walking path the HOA had utilized was situated on my property, and any ongoing use would necessitate a proper easement agreement. Karen's complexion shifted through a spectrum of shades: deep red, stark white, vivid purple, and finally an alarming gray. She stammered about consulting lawyers, about her supposed authority, and about how this was utterly impossible. The officers advised her that submitting a false police report constituted a misdemeanor, and strongly recommended she depart the property without delay. As she turned to leave, she yelled that this matter was far from resolved and that the HOA would litigate me into financial ruin. Sergeant Wallace calmly noted that continued harassment was also criminal. The remainder of the barbecue was magnificent. News traveled swiftly among the guests, and soon everyone wanted to examine the surveys. My neighbor Tom, who had once been fined $300 for using the incorrect shade of beige on his mailbox, actually wept with relief and happiness. The music played with greater volume, the food seemed even more delicious, and children, who had previously feared making too much noise, now enthusiastically held cannonball competitions in the pond. 3 days later, I received an urgent letter from the HOA's attorney attempting to contest the property boundaries. James countered with a thorough response package that included not only our documentation, but also a detailed calculation of 10 years of unauthorized land use. The estimated monetary value was considerable. He additionally enclosed photographs of Karen's repeated trespassing episodes and transcripts of her threatening statements. The HOA's lawyer retracted the challenge within 48 hours. The emergency HOA meeting the following Tuesday was packed beyond capacity. I did not attend, I was not a member after all. But Tom provided me with a detailed recounting. Karen attempted to reframe the events, asserting she had been safeguarding the community's best interests. When the board treasurer disclosed that contesting the property issue could exceed $200,000 in legal fees alone, excluding possible damages for trespassing, the room exploded in outrage. Homeowners who had remained silent for years suddenly spoke up. The no-confidence vote was rapid and overwhelming, 38-2. Karen's sole supporters were her vice president and a woman widely believed to be her sister. As the results were announced, Karen rose to her feet, her expression contorted with fury, and proclaimed that we would all come to regret this, that she had connections, and that she would ruin our lives. The board president, Prom, quietly informed her that threats made during an official meeting were being recorded and could serve as evidence, but the true reckoning arrived 2 weeks later. It turned out Karen was employed as a compliance officer at a regional bank. Someone, and I genuinely do not know who, forwarded her employer a video montage compiling her threatening conduct, trespassing, and misuse of authority. Banks generally disapprove of staff exhibiting such questionable judgment and exposing the institution to legal risks. She was suspended on administrative leave while an investigation proceeded. The ultimate consequence came when the county sheriff's office, upon reviewing the false report she had submitted, elected to charge her with misuse of emergency services. This misdemeanor offense carries a potential fine of up to $5,000. When she was served with the summons at the parking space formerly reserved for the HOA president, witnesses reported that she simply remained seated in her car, staring at the document for 20 minutes before driving off. The expression on her face, as described by Tom, who observed the entire scene from his driveway, was one of total and profound defeat, as though she had at last comprehended that her campaign of intimidation had not granted her power. It had merely transformed her into a criminal facing an impending court appearance and a $5,000 fine looming overhead.